can say, put you to bed when you've had too much to drink. Oh, could be the man who grows old with you.
I don't hate anybody. I'm not a hate monger. More of a hate stylist, if you will. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll get some new titles going. I mean, I'll get some new opening credits
No,
going.
see, because we wanted to contrast and compare the differences.
Yes.
While he is potentially a comedic hate monger, we
Yes.
are love mongers. I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
The Cinemaniacs.
So have you seen any movies lately?
That I loved, I'm not quite sure, but saw a couple of good ones. It's been a little quiet locally.
On the local cinema scene?
And we certainly don't blame our friends at Keene Cinemas. We always thank them for their help, but we're hoping to get some new stuff. But I did a little extracurricular, which I will take care of quickly so that we can move on, because it is actually a pretty busy day. See, we actually do communicate, and when we speak to each other, offset every now and then.
Smoke signals
And so
from across town?
We were worried initially that, because usually we only get like 3 or 4 things from video headquarters. And so you came up with the bright idea, because we didn't figure there was going to be anything new at Keene Cinemas. So you came up with the bright idea of, hey, let's do a fave, which are usually fun, something that you folks haven't seen before and you like and I like and those kinds of things. So we popped those on there, and strangely enough, 6 things came out of video headquarters. So we had 8, and then strangely enough, Walter wanted to go see a couple of things, so I did a double feature yesterday. So we've got like 11 things to talk about. So we should probably get underway, shall I?
No time to lose.
Since I was the one to see it originally. Michael Keaton plays an actor who is struggling for not even fame, but for veracity and belief in the truth and the quality of life. And unfortunately, he's been pigeonholed, no pun intended. You'll find that out why it's no pun intended as we come up to the discussion. But he's been really stereotyped by this one role that he did 20 years ago, and he can't break out of it. He decides to get a bunch of colleagues together and really well-known names to make a break on Broadway. But you just can't get away from his stereotype, because everybody remembers him as Birdman. So this is a very unique, almost kind of art house type of a film. Playing in one of the smallest theaters. I went to Hooksett to see this. Strangely enough, my younger son wanted to see it as well. So we did a double feature yesterday in Hooksett. Only like 10 people in the theater. I like Keaton a lot. It's got a great cast. Naomi Watts, Zach Galifianakis in a serious role. Not overly dramatic, but he's not being this goofy guy that he usually is. He's very good. Naomi Watts, as I said, Emma Stone, Edward Norton. It's got a terrific cast. And in many respects, if you remember a movie called Noises Off, which was with Michael Caine and
like
Christopher Reeve, a screwball comedy. This is the very dark side of that, and it follows Keaton, and he's Birdman, who is very clearly supposed to be a Batman kind of a character. So that's sort of a fun little wink nudge at this. But it's a very dark, very kind of grim, unusual film. It's almost entirely one shot. For an hour and a half, and there are little tricks. It's not rope,
but not like
tricks.
A camera bolted to the floor wide shot. The camera moves.
Very, very cleverly choreographed and shot by the director of photography was Lubeski, who shot Gravity, and we had that opening shot with Gravity, and this was CG and green screen and everything, like a 15-minute opening shot. So once I saw the end credits with that, I understood it. It's not at all distracting. It's the kind of thing you and I would notice, but I don't think you'd ever notice it otherwise. This was you don't know whether to like the characters or dislike the characters, but it's really a very engrossing, interesting film. You and I didn't get a chance to talk about it, or you didn't get a chance to see it, so I'll save the majority of my comments for when it comes out on video. But I really ended up liking it. I had a lot of respect for the filmmaking. Performances are terrific, and it ends on a very unusual, fun note. So I'll be interested to see what you have to say about it when we get there.
I look forward to it at some point.
It really was pretty good, and I liked it. It will probably end up being on my top 10 once we get to the end of the year. What may or may not be on my top 10 next is Keanu Reeves is back, if you can believe it, and he's going to kick some parts of the anatomy because as he's watching his wife, he's a former unbelievably gifted assassin who pulls himself out of the business, and he still has some little ties, but he's wanting to keep just kind of a normal life together. Unfortunately, it only lasts about 4 or 5 years because his wife dies of cancer. And as he's struggling through that, some bad guys come along and they make kind of a wreck of his life, even more so, as the case may be. So he has to get revenge, and his name is John Wick.
Thanksgiving.
Isn't it, though? If you survive this, you have a lot of things
You give thanks.
to give thanks. This is purely an excuse for Keanu Reeves, a la The Matrix. It's not the slow-mo stuff, but he's just wiping everybody out. My only real problems with this, because, and again, I feel like I'm... our heralded director, Mr. Elliott, was suggesting last week after the show that I don't like anything. And he's probably right. I got to thinking about that because I'm always being down on stuff, which isn't really the case. So I'm going to give this one like an 8. But again, I temper that by saying I may give this an 8 and I might give, for example, Gone with the Wind an 8 or something like that. They're certainly completely different 8s. Right? This one's trying to
be...
For
a Keanu Reeves action movie, this is an 8.
And that's all it's trying to do, is to have Keanu Reeves... it's fairly well shot. You can tell what's going on. Woo. It's clearly him doing it. It's beautifully shot, real pretty colors and everything like that. So for what it wanted to do, I thought it was loads of fun. I went into this just hearing great things about it because my students were all loving it. Everybody's giving it some pretty good reviews. Oh, Keanu Reeves is back. And it really is a lot of fun. He doesn't have to emote too much, which is good. You've got some good supporting characters and supporting actors in this. So if you're just looking to go see a well-shot, it's pretty long, and I have a little bit, and this is getting picky, motivation issue as to why he goes out and kills. He ends up killing like 50 people throughout this movie.
Is it the Twinkie thing? Low blood sugar?
It's not quite that. It's not quite that bad, but otherwise, I mean, this is really lots of fun. If what you're seeing on the screen is what you're thinking you're going to get, which is Keanu Reeves kicking a lot of people around, people blowing up, and things blowing up, you're going to get what you want, and that's all I was looking for. And I thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, heck, that looks good to me.
Yes, doesn't it though?
I do so love a good action film.
Rated R. Language, yeah, there's certainly language in it, but primarily for pretty gritty violence. So, yeah.
So I would say that's all that's at Keene Cinemas this week, but actually neither of them are. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
But there's plenty of good stuff there.
Sure.
Gone Girl and Fury. I liked Fury,
Yep.
tank movie, quite a bit actually.
And I was surprised by Gone Girl as well.
Yeah, and I think those have been...
Still got some good things.
Gone Girl's been a strong performer from what I've heard in theaters in general.
Right.
So we move on to pre-thanking our friends at Video Headquarters for the films we're about to discuss, plus a few surprises if we have time.
Exactly.
First up, we have Chloe Grace Moretz as a young, nice high school girl whose family gets in a car accident. I'm not giving anything away. And she must decide, as she straddles the line between the here and the hereafter, if she stays.
He said it.
Does she? I don't know.
I don't know. Can't tell them.
Watch the movie to find out.
That's right.
If you've seen the trailer, you probably have a good idea. So I thought this movie was okay. For me. This isn't really a movie that's made for my type of manly male type person. But
would you call it strictly, sorry to say it, a chick flick?
I would say mostly. Might be a good date movie if you're into that sort of thing.
Okay.
My problem with it is the structure. It starts off and you see a little bit of this girl's home life.
Right.
Great family, nice people being nice to each other, which I like in a movie. It's rare these days.
Right.
And they get into this horrific accident, and then she's fighting for life, and she's sort of out of body, looking at herself and struggling as to whether she's going to remain in this world where her parents or the rest of her immediate family is dead, or if she will go on to hopefully be with them in the white light.
Right.
And while she's struggling with this, the film goes back to showing how her home life was, how her parents were. You get the backstory basically in chunks. My problem with that structure is that you're wrapped up with the backstory. Oh, she's falling in love with this young musician guy, and then
Right.
suddenly we're back in the present in the hospital, and you're like, but what was that? Okay, well, now we're in the hospital. Is she going to live? Her family is sad, and then we're back in high school again. So whenever I was getting emotionally involved, or at least interested in the story I was being told, it switched gears to some other part of her life. So that herky-jerky grinding of the gears took a little away from me. I don't know if the movie would have worked if you told it as a straight linear story.
And that's what, because I agree completely with your analysis of that. And so the thing we'd obviously ask ourselves is, well, how could you reorganize it? And I don't think you could, at least linear.
I mean, everybody in it is good,
Yep.
and it's well made. It's a weepy movie. This is one of those movies where I heard a lot of sniffles as the film was going along. And in my head, this and The Fault in Our Stars would be a really good double feature if you kind of want to cry for 3 hours on your couch. The Kleenex and Scott Tissues companies are subtly whispering in people's ears, rent these movies and use our product. So I think if you're into, I hate to use the phrase chick flicks, this probably would be successful for you.
Right. I thought performances were good. I had the same issues both in the theater. I watched it again on video and did like it a little bit more on video. I found it a little less cloying, for want of a better term, and kind of a little less sappy. So and enjoyed the performances more. But I went into this remembering that strange dichotomy of its presentation and thinking even more so that it hurts it. But I as I was watching it the second time on video, I couldn't see how you could restructure it and make that at all interesting, because you're just it is this kind of slow build-up, and that helps pull kind of the emotional strings. So for what it was worth, I thought it was pretty interesting, and I liked it even a little bit more on home video, and I don't think it loses anything on home video.
No, it's really a human drama. There's not a lot of cinematicness to it.
It doesn't need huge scope or
sweeping vistas. I think there's one helicopter shot in the movie, and that's about it. So up next.
Speaking of a film that may or may not need sweeping vistas, and probably you need a big screen on this. Storm chasers and thrill seekers and innocent bystanders, particularly kids, get into trouble as a pretty bad day occurs with lots of tornadic activity. And the only way you're going to really find out what's going on is if you head into the storm. What?
It's just stupid.
It was pretty stupid.
I hate shaky cam movies. I hate
Okay.
found footage movies. This is one of those. I don't think I knew it was going to be that when I saw this in the theater, and I think if I did know that, I wouldn't have gone.
The found footage part, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you hate
because
those.
it's just so contrived, and they go out of their way to explain and do all this dumb time-wasting stuff as to why they're always shooting everything. And I just like movies to look good, and found footage movies don't. I don't see why this couldn't have been done normally.
Right.
So to take it for what it is, you have this team of storm chasers who are chasing storms and shooting a documentary about it, and for some reason they have to keep the cameras rolling when they're getting gas and having important conversations to the plot. And everybody in the movie is always videotaping everything for some reason. So when two teenagers are in the process of drowning, they make sure there's a camera pointed at themselves. And what does this have going for it? It has the special effects, albeit special effects with a shaky camera pointed at them.
Right.
I'm of the mind where if a movie like The Exorcist exists and it's great, if you're going to make a movie that's just like The Exorcist about an exorcism, it better do something very different or be really good. Twister still exists, by the way.
Right.
This movie is nothing more than an updating of Twister with newer effects and a bad camera work and less interesting characters. So I don't really know why you would pick this over Twister unless you're against watching a movie that's 15 years old, I guess.
Right.
The big thing in the trailer, I don't remember if it was in this trailer or not, fire gets sucked into a tornado, so you have like a fire-nado.
Right.
That's briefly amusing, but I just thought this was really cheesy and bad.
I love tornadoes. I spent one of my sabbaticals from where I teach in my real job. Going tornado chasing. Unfortunately, it was like the nicest week ever in the Midwest. So all you have to do is say it's a movie about tornadoes, and I'll be at least interested. But you're right. This is even the footage of the tornadoes. It's so hard to see because you have this premise of that it's all realistically shot by either the storm chasers, who that's at least a reason for them to shoot some somewhat decent, stable footage. But the rest of it is all of this. These guys, these hicks, as you were saying before, these rednecks on YouTube who are shooting stuff, and people with their cell phones, and it's just impossible to see the footage. And so you're right, as much as I kind of dislike Twister as a movie because it's so stupid and it's so clearly set up just to play up the special effects, at least it does it well. And I was really disappointed in Into the Storm. I know they're sorry to hear that. But even if you're a big Tornado fan, I guess it's worth a watch for that, but you never need to go back and see it again. Whereas with some of the other stuff, there is some decent reason to see it again.
There are a lot of Sci-Fi Channel movies, which get a bad name, that have worse special effects that I have enjoyed much more than Into the Storm.
Right.
Not that we're comparing much of anything, but
well, this one took itself seriously, and you
For
can
the
still
most
see
part,
some decent sort of tornadoes if you watch Sharknado, and then you've got sharks coming out of it too.
And I love those
that's
movies.
Cool.
I'm waiting for them to make a third one so I can get the set.
You're okay. There you go.
So, speaking of opposing forces,
Yes.
we have Michael Douglas and Diane Keaton. Michael in this upcoming film, I should say, and a little bit of, boy, sometimes I get dumb. Meathead.
Oh, Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
Who is our
I'm so
director.
sorry. Who's not a meathead, he just played a character named that. So, Michael Douglas plays a cranky old realtor who suddenly finds himself taking care of the granddaughter he never met before, and he's got a lot of growing up to do in And So It Goes. Hi, we're just planning next week's
just
show.
talking.
Don't mind
Welcome
us.
back. Come on back.
So, this is not so much of a comedy.
Oh, it sure isn't.
Based
Boy.
on that trailer. Which is to say, I mean, I didn't find it that funny, but there are people who might possibly find it funny. It's really more of a drama than a comedy. And they chose to market this as a comedy because the drama is pretty, not like hard to watch, but it's unpleasant subject matter for the most
and
part.
unpleasant characters and geez.
Yeah, so it's if you market it as a feel-good movie, maybe people will show up for that.
Right.
So yeah, it's not much of a comedy. Diane Keaton is kind of the ditzy character she often plays. Michael Douglas is cranky, and that's mostly what you got. And you know, maybe by the end of this movie, his heart will be warmed by the love of a youth.
Oh, gee.
Not any kind of
think?
underage, disgusting stuff. I mean the familial love of a youth, in a illegal way. So I didn't find this all that funny.
Right.
I mean, it was pleasantly shot. It was set in and around Connecticut, I believe. So you have sort of a seaside, affluent Connecticut look to it.
Right.
But ultimately, this might be one. Generally, I'm happy when I see movies that are aimed at older folks because so little of the market is aimed at that segment of the population. So it's got that going for it, kind of. But for the most part, it's just mostly unpleasant, I thought.
Well, you've got Douglas, whose character is unpleasant.
Yes.
And Keaton, the older she gets, the more I like Diane Keaton for some reason. She recognizes her age, and she still has great delivery. And she was by far my favorite thing about this movie. And in the past, I've never been crazy about her. And everybody loves Annie Hall and all that. And I just thought it got kind of old after a while. I just really like her anymore. So she made the movie enough for me. Rob Reiner is in this as her piano player and just sort of personal assistant, and he's bad.
And he directed this.
He directed this,
okay.
and you'd mentioned as we were talking, at some point in time, he's forgotten how to be funny, both personally and.
I've seen interviews with him, and he can be funny
What happened?
in conversation.
Right.
But yeah, this movie just felt like it didn't work.
I kind of wondered, for some reason, and I just felt like either he was, because the camera is so objective all the time, and I'm not saying get into a subjective camera really, but it's kind of like he just pulls back and lets Keaton and Douglas do whatever they want to do. And like maybe, and he's a force as a director, you know, he's done some great stuff. He's done some really bad stuff, but it just felt like he was just letting them do whatever they wanted to do with this film. And while I liked Keaton with that, Douglas didn't sell me, and I like him a lot. This just really didn't connect for me, where the funniest, quote-unquote funniest thing in the film was supposed to be two old people having sex and then trying to get back and having sex again. And the last half hour of the film is arguing about that. It's just, as you said, it's marketed as a comedy. It isn't at all. But even as a drama, it doesn't work because stakes aren't high enough, characters aren't interesting enough. So really, not that I was expecting a lot, but even so disappointed, and then so it goes.
But are you disappointed in our next title?
That's a good question, and you never know with sequels. Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill are back. See if you've heard this one before. They play police officers who are going to go undercover as students. There's a unique idea. And the only thing is, they're not doing it at the same place. They move right across the way to 22 Jump Street. So this is real highbrow humor. This is
some classy business.
Peter Sellers kind of stuff, yeah.
I didn't like the first one
Okay.
much at all. I think Channing Tatum is not an actor, and I don't like Jonah Hill.
Right.
So I was not looking forward to
jumping in on
yeah,
this one,
so
weren't you?
hey, rah. So I was not looking forward to this film, but
Yes.
I did appreciate this movie is the exact same thing as the first one.
Yep, sure is.
And they actually acknowledge that throughout the movie.
Right.
Verbally, like, you know, it seems like we've been here before or something like that. And basically it is a spoof of sequels that are, see, it's both sides. It is condemning and spoofing sequels that are nothing but a copy of the original while being that
Right.
which they are spoofing. And I think for me the funniest part of the movie was during the end credits, they flash forward to all of the additional sequels
Right.
that they might do. And those are pretty darn funny.
Yeah.
So I thought Ice Cube was well utilized, better utilized in this than in the first one.
Right.
I didn't think this was terribly good, but I did like it better than the original. Too late to get our name on the box cover for saying that.
Yeah.
So I thought if you like the original, I thought this, unless you have a big problem with it being the same story, but I thought it was amusing, and especially its self-referentialness I
Okay.
enjoyed.
No, I liked the original, I think, more than you did, it seems. I never watched the original TV show, so I wasn't
pretty good,
waiting for that one. Although in the original, there are some funny moments,
Yes.
if you're familiar with the original TV show. So I came into this one looking forward to it. I'm learning to accept... I think Tatum and Hill have a decent kind of chemistry together. And I don't remember if it was on this one, but on the original trailers, they had a bit. Channing Tatum used to be a male stripper and dancer, and he's really good as a dancer. And so they had some of that where he's dancing, and it's not in the movie. That angered me because I was looking forward to that. Just to,
You want more
Channing Tatum
gyrations.
dancing. Come on, damn it.
Yes.
But I really sort of. This is kind of a guilty pleasure. I'm not real high on it, but I liked it, I'll say, more than the original as well. I agree with that. And in particular, its kind of wink-wink nature at intelligently making fun of itself. So if you like the first one, I think you're going to like this one as much, if not more. And I think I can kind of, with a moderation, recommend 22 Jump Street.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, speaking of hijinks and hilarity,
Yes.
we have a new thriller starring Ryan Philippe. And if I look off, it's not because I'm having an episode, it's because we have notes down here. Rachel Lefevre, if I'm pronouncing that right, and John Cusack. And a young couple goes to Puerto Rico to get a Haitian orphan to adopt for their very own daughter. And one day, they wake up and she's not there anymore. Somebody has decided to reclaim her. Walks from, hi, sorry.
And we're back again.
Oops.
He can't stop them talking.
can't say-
It's amazing.
So yeah, to finish that thought,
Yes.
3 times a day, if you can believe that. So I thought this was a really good, solid thriller.
Sort of a surprise.
Really well made, beautiful locations, good acting, good cast across the board. The only issue I had with it was toward the end, it turns into a big dumb Hollywood action movie,
Right.
and it, like almost laughably ridiculous. I always say, I don't need movies where people are always hanging off a train or duking it out on top of a helicopter or something like that. Having a fist fight on the wing of a plane. This almost gets into that category after being very grounded in reality and
Right.
believable throughout. But really compelling. Seriously, there was a point in the movie where my heart was racing, and I realized that. And it may have been because I had worked 12 hours already that day, but I had 4 or 5 cans of Coke. But I was like, wow, this movie is really working for me, and not a lot does. So
Right.
I would say, and this is straight to video. It doesn't have any major ooh, I'm going to reach for that faces on the cover, but it's, I think, certainly worth a rental.
Right. I like Cusack, and I'll watch a movie just because he's in it, except I'm getting to the point where I'm wondering, is he the next Michael Caine? Because in particular,
Or Bruce Willis these days.
we reviewed a movie a couple of weeks ago where Cusack was on the cover and one of the above the title names there, and he couldn't have been in it for 2 minutes. For 2 scenes. It was unbelievable. So I'm getting to the point where I couldn't trust him, but he's in this quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's not the lead, The other two, the adoptive parents, are clearly the leads. They're both very good. There's some decent subplot going on with them. But Cusack, at times you don't know, is he going to be a good guy? Is he going to be a bad guy? So he has a lot to do. And you're right that for the first 3/4 of this film, I was really enjoying it. It does digress into, and I don't mind an action flick if it's decently shot, and it wasn't. And if it's not just, oh, come on, give me a break, unbelievable, and it was. Give me a break, unbelievable. So I can still recommend Reclaim as a surprising kind of interesting rental. It's just not one of anybody's top 20s, but I thought it was a surprisingly enjoyable little flick.
Did it make you green with envy?
It did not, but strangely enough, you probably remember the name Susan Oliver. Sure you do. Not that many people do. Don't know why, because in the 50s and 60s and early television and even beyond there, hundreds of television shows she was in. You're going to recognize the face. There's a new documentary out about this wonderful actress and director. And strangely enough, the best way you're probably going to remember her, Star Trek fans, is she was the Green Girl. And we're back.
Hi.
Don't say hi. It's a shot of me.
Oh.
Or
I was saying hello to you.
I was a ventriloquist. You didn't realize that. Thank you. Oh, you were saying hi to me. I'm sorry. That was very nice. But actually, here's yet another one that you force upon me. And what a surprise. Really interesting documentary on this woman.
This is a movie that I actually bought with my own money, because I'm grown up and I have my own money. Because I've always been a fan of Susan Oliver, and I heard that there was a documentary, and I'm like, oh, cool, I don't know much about her at all. And seriously, you have to either be a major film and TV fan or grown up in a certain era, and you know her face, because she's in so many shows.
Right.
And so not too much feature film work, mostly TV work.
Well, and this addresses that.
Yeah.
You think, why the heck wasn't she?
Yeah, because she was so good. I knew her primarily from the Star Trek episode The Cage, the pilot episode of Star Trek, and from The Delicate Delinquent, the Jerry Lewis movie.
Okay.
And I always liked her. I thought she was a really good actress, and anytime I saw her show up in something, I got excited. Certain people like Dick Miller, if anybody knows him, they show up in something and they make the movie better by their presence being in it.
Right.
So you have this documentary basically saying, who was this person, and telling you about her life. She was very interesting. It's sort of a sad story, ultimately, but this was a woman who worked consistently in TV, never broke big, but was very dependable, and also had this other life as a female pilot, like a somewhat pioneering modern era female solo, small aircraft pilot. She piloted a plane from the U.S. to Russia by herself in the 60s. Right. And the only reason she didn't make it to Russia was because they claimed they didn't have the airspace for her to land or something like that. But she made news, and that was her other passion aside from film and TV work, acting work, I should say, was this air flight stuff, which was really interesting. So I think the movie was pretty well done. The only issue I had was at the beginning, where it was a bit frenetic in its pacing of the intro to the film, where you're seeing film clips and you're seeing newspaper articles while people are talking. I have a problem where I can't really read and hear somebody talk at the same time. They cancel each other out. And then you see somebody talking and they've got a subtitle as to identify them, so you're trying to read what that says while they're talking, and it's edited pretty fast. Other than that, it calms down and it's very interesting. It's a huge wealth of clips. And it looks like they went farther than just pulling clips off YouTube, which too many documentaries do now. It looks like they actually did research and had source material for a lot of this. So as a fan of Susan Oliver, this made me appreciate her and her work even more, and it makes me really want to go and see a lot more of it.
Right.
And a lot of her, she did tons of episodic TV and long-running series. And for the first time in my life, I'm interested in watching old Peyton Place episodes now, because Susan Oliver was on that show, and I wanted to see what she did on it. So I would say if you're a fan of old TV and that's a familiar face, this is really interesting. If you're a fan, I almost want to say this could be shown in classes of women's studies classes, because she was a pretty badass chick, Right. So I thoroughly enjoyed The Green Girl.
I was struck by, we've reviewed a couple of documentaries recently, and my comments on the previous ones were where it suffered was from a lack of material. And you sure don't have a lack of available material for a documentary on Susan Oliver. And so I thought the filmmakers really did go the extra mile to get a variety of things. I agree the beginning is kind of claustrophobic in the amount of information they shove at you. One of the running threads which ties everything together is this voiceover of her words, and they get an actress apparently
Who
because I was
sounds
wondering,
just like her.
You're right. I
Yeah.
was wondering if it was her, and so I kept thinking, why don't we see her? Why don't we
Right,
see her?
right.
Until you do end up realizing this must be from her biography or something like that, because it really does sound like her. So that was distracting. While I found it interesting that she was this pioneering aviatrix, I found the film to spend too long on that. While I guess I have to trust that was that important to her, and it clearly was. I wasn't nearly that interested in it, and I don't think it's just because of our involvement with the media. I found much more her, and I knew her certainly as Vina from Star Trek and the Green Dancing Girl, and I remember her from Twilight Zones. But none of those roles to which I'm referring took a whole lot of grit and great acting prowess. And so as I'm watching this, I'm seeing this huge range from this woman whom I thought was basically just kind of an attractive B movie actress. And I was really becoming stunned at what a range she really seemed to have. And you're right, I would love to be able to go back and watch some of these things, because she was stunningly beautiful, really smart, and had some real drive. And interestingly enough, and I don't want to give away too much if you're interested in watching this, but you do kind of wonder, why didn't she make it as big as it clearly seemed that she could? And this movie does a pretty good job answering that. So as a surprising doc on somebody I thought was, kind of maybe even either a passing fad or one of your more recognizable B actresses, I thought this was a real revelation and an interesting film.
And what's funny is that the reason I fell for her as an actress so long ago as a kid, she brings this level of depth and seriousness to The Disorderly Orderly that wasn't really necessary,
right,
but really takes this movie to a whole other level when you're watching it in between Jerry Lewis going, "Oh, I've been named," which is fine, by the way.
That seems to be a quality of hers, that she
elevates the material.
Good actors do that. They elevate the material, and it's interesting that one of the actors with whom she co-starred addressed this. Said one of the movies, and it wasn't the Disorderly Orderly, to which he was referring, but they were talking about a film that she did, that the script was just really, really bad, and she went ahead. She was pretty much forced to do it. I think it was Warner Brothers said, you've got to do this, and so she went ahead and did it, and said she's going to do her damnedest to make it a decent job, and you can't do that. The material's got to be there, and as hard as you try, you can be a great actor, and you can't bring that up. And so, and you're right that in many respects, as we follow this career, it becomes kind of a sad story. I thought to get down one more time, I guess, unfortunately, on the film, is that I thought that transition was a little too quick. We're following all these successes, and then the last half hour or so, boom, it's way downhill. But something I didn't know about her. So I thought this was a surprisingly interesting film on what I didn't know was a surprisingly talented woman.
And this is a film that is available on DVD and perhaps streaming download, I'm not sure. If you go to a website, The Green Girl Movie, if you do a web search on that, you can find it. This isn't in stores, but it is readily available because that's how I got it.
There you go.
So our final film to discuss, available at Video Headquarters, which is how we got it, is the second in the Sin City series of cinematic, scintillatingly sassy sensations. All your favorite characters and a few more from the original Sin City are back in black and white and a lot of red in Sin City, A Dame to Kill For.
So for the exact same reason that I really kind of didn't like the first one, I really kind of liked this one, which is just its over-the-top, in-your-face style. Not a whole lot of effort really going to the story on this thing. You just see, let's find a reason to see naked women and things blowing up and people getting shot and color exploding.
And really, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, no, I have no idea. After 10, we'll talk about it.
Yes.
But so I just took my thinking cap off and really sat back and kind of enjoyed this one.
I had a blast with this movie too. I like the original quite a bit. It's a combination of the style because it's based on Frank Miller's graphic novel, which had a really interesting look to it, and it emulates that. It really is the comic come to life. It looks exactly like it, in black and white and a little other color here and there. And so the style is really interesting. At first, when this film first started, the style started to bug me. I was like, you can calm that down a little bit. But it does. It's just when it's going, there's so much, moving frames and all kinds of stuff. But once the story starts going, they ease back on that. The cast is a heck of a lot of fun, hamming it up a bit, but they're doing that for the comic book effect. Everything you want in an R-rated movie, if you're a manly male type person, you've got your gratuitous nudity and everything. You've got your gratuitous violence. You've got your cussing. You've got your drinking. You have your exceeding of the speed limit. I mean, everything. I was sitting here in the theater over at Keene Cinemas watching this, and I was almost giggly because I'm like, this is just a movie for men. This is just a manly, like, old tough guy noir movie. And it is very much in the style of the old 40s film noir
We have to find some way to refer to these kinds of films in a semi-derogatory fashion, the way I feel bad to say chick flick.
I was thinking
on the
about that,
earlier ones,
actually,
but
too.
it so quickly identifies it, and I don't mean it as a derogatory, but so we got to find some way to
chick
say
flick,
that.
I don't like that term really because it's very dismissive. If you're a female and you like these, you must not know anything. Well, these movies that like I'm talking about here, there's nothing terribly morally great about Sin City, and there's nothing really deeply intelligent about it. But at the time, I remember thinking this is kind of a smart noir movie in terms of the dialogue and how it's presented in the double crossing and things. It's not just stupid violence and stuff. But it is violence and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it's interesting. I wasn't aware until after I was reading about this movie, after I saw it. I believe the Josh Brolin character is supposed to be the Clive Owen character from the first film.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Which it's been so many, like 15, 10 years, I don't know, since they made the first Sin City. I'd forgotten a lot of the details. So maybe if you watch the two back to back, that will stand out more. But Cricket watched this last night and she liked it. And she's a female type person.
There you go.
And she hadn't seen the original and had no problem with that. So you can watch this as a standalone.
Right.
But I think if you've seen the original, it's going to mean more because a lot of stuff and characters tie into the first movie.
Right.
So I would.
There's not huge depth to these characters that you got to see the first one to understand it. You can pick up pretty quickly.
Primal human emotion, really.
Right.
You wronged me, and now I will end you. Is more or less where it's at here. So yeah, not one for the kids.
Blends perfectly with John Wick. See, John Wick and A Dame to Kill For, a great double feature. If you're a manly man, I guess.
If you're a manly male type person, or and which is not to say females couldn't enjoy this too, because the one who lives with me did. So hey, there you go. So that's all we have for this week.
Yep.
We will have more in store for your pleasure next week.
Yep.
And including but not limited to the new Hunger Games film.
Oh yeah, that's got to be huge. I would think.
I have
out on Friday.
No idea what's on video, but my cheat sheet might indicate that Medea's Christmas, Expendables 3, and or The Giver might be discussed next week.
I would bet they probably were. We had Mark and I each had a fave to get through, but rather than cut it short because we want to spend some time discussing things, we'll save those for a later date.
So that makes they're going to tune in every week saying, "Oh, when's
Just to
the
find
favorites?
what was it? What was it?"
And you won't believe what they are either. Something you'd never probably watch on your own. So I guess until next week, I'm Mark.
I'm Tom.
We are the
Cinemaniacs.